the approval of version 8 of the tariff methodology, which is attached here to as Annexure A, the decision and reasons for decision on the review of the tariff methodology attached here to as Annexure B, as well as the piloting period of the new version of the methodology 12 months in order to prepare the industry for the implementation of the new components. And to request the PPS to note and adopt the efficiency benchmarking report, which is attached in the submission as Annexure D. The general rationale for the review of the methodologies by the energy regulator is to address the need to adopt or adapt rather to the changing landscape in the petroleum industry as a whole, particularly in terms of ensuring the attainment of the objects of the Act, which are also aligned with the economic and socio-economic objectives of the country. PPS has noted during the process of reviewing the methodology, the 3 research papers that have fed into the review process and also approved for publication the consultation documents on the efficiency benchmarking as well as on the review of the method for public consultation. We have also attached as Appendix 3 the assessment of the objectives of the review of the methodology as were highlighted during the extended PPS workshop. And the new version 8 of the methodology has 4 revised components, namely the regulatory asset base, where we have excluded the fully depreciated assets that are still in use, the net working capital formula with the removal of the minimum, the cost of equity formula, where the amendments pertain to the additional risk adjustment parameters, and taxation, where we now only have one approach to the taxation, and that is the flow-through tax approach. We also have 4 new components that are being introduced. The first one being the efficiency adjustment factor through volume rules, which will also consider the volume risk sharing. The removal of the tariff method part, this will be on a provisional basis until the piloting is finalized and the results sufficiently support the proposal. The third new element is the creation of regulatory asset and or liability. And lastly, the deferment of allowable revenue. And we know that this may have to be interchangeable with the removal of the time value of money pending the piloting phase. Finally, the pilot components, which will be incorporated into the frequently asked questions over the next financial year period. The of the 28th of Feb are attached in the addendum to the submission, and therefore.
Thank you very much, Madam Yogane. I would like to also remind ourselves here that this submission deals with the review of the tariff methodology for the petroleum pipelines. There are actually certain aspects that talk to the efficiency, and the efficiency that the volumes increase for a fixed asset being the pipeline is that then the tariffs tend to go down. Hence, the need to really look at and say, is the pipeline operated at an optimal level? If not, at least to be deemed to be operating at that level, so that the tariffs are kept optimal, not meaning that the other aspects of that deal with efficiency are not looked at, as you would appreciate that efficiency is considered in terms of the especially when you look at the cost and also the issue of prudency, both in the construction and the operation of these facilities. And I would also remind all of us that we've got also item 6 that deals with the transitioning of the pipe of the loading and storage facilities tariff methodology. And some of the lessons have been learned from that methodology, following up with this pipeline methodology. At the same time, we need to ensure balance, that the frequency of review of these should be balanced against creating regulatory uncertainty and lack of stability, because having stability and certainty help in terms of getting investment inflows. I would leave it at that, members, and request that you then come forth with the questions, comments, and giving guidance, noting that this matter has also been workshopped from our side. Over to you by show of hands. Any comments, questions, or guidance, members?
Thank you, Chairperson, and to the team as well. Maybe firstly, just to thank the team for taking into account the comments and input raised during the implementation of the various components of the methodology. And that was actually the one comment that I had, looking specifically at the creation of liability on paragraph 16.20 of item 5, pages 1 to 74, of examples that would qualify to be transferred into a regulatory asset or liability. But there is no indication of how those will be assessed. So, for instance, if you take the first one that talks about unrecovered plant and regulatory study costs, where construction has been cancelled, I think in such instances there would obviously need to be an assessment to say what led to the abandonment of the construction, and was it the licensee's negligence or whatever. But I think some kind of assessment of these issues would be critical before a decision is taken to move them into a regulatory asset. That criteria that the team is talking about includes this kind of assessment to say for items or for issues to be considered for either regulatory asset or liability, there needs to be that kind of an assessment, and I suppose a guideline of sorts or a criteria of sorts would then help. And I noted that there were no previous comments on this issue, Chair. But I hope that the team will take this into consideration. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sibanda. Madam Massetti.
I note that in the document we do make reference to, in terms of the scale efficiencies, as well as I think we have some, allocative efficiency. We did touch on the issue of efficiencies insofar as we have to consider tariff applications and also certain costs that are involved therein, so that we can be able to see immediate benefits or some efficiency gains that could be achieved through that tariff for us. But for us to even be able to consider those efficiencies, I think we must be certain that they are recognizable, they are going to be achieved. So I'm just not sure in the document and in the decision that is required, whether at least we do state the efficiency standards that are required by the regulator, just so that we can guide the licensees when we approve this, because we talk about the importance of considering efficiencies, whether we just, there are different efficiencies, economic efficiencies, but I would assume that the regulator will also consider very much dynamic efficiencies, given the precedents around different jurisdictions. So I wanted to understand, at least from our side, as the regulator, when we consider these matters, what standard of efficiency are we going to consider? Unless then we're going to need to come back to that issue through a clarification of some sort, once we align as regulator members what kind of efficiencies will be acceptable, and what benefits are we expecting from such efficiencies. Thereafter, then licensees are quite aware what kind of efficiencies they need to justify when they bring applications to us, so that we can be able to consider those during the application. So I thought, let me take a bit of time there, Chair, because we did touch on that, but I'm not seeing any recommendations insofar as efficiencies are concerned, and the standard of such efficiencies and what we need to, the circumstances, because sometimes you will indicate that if then the matter, it's not very clear how it will benefit the users, then it means it needs to be justified by efficiency gains. And what are those efficiency gains, so that we can balance and do some trade-offs in terms of those efficiency gains. So hoping that in our economic analysis of these applications, we should take those into consideration. The second thing, Chairperson, that I wanted to get clarification on really is the timing of considering time value of money. I'm not sure under these economic conditions, the volume risk that we've been struggling with over the years, where the licensees are not able to achieve the volumes that they undertook or that they've projected. Now, what will happen is that the clawback will always be in favor of the licensees. Now, when you do that, it means that even the amount of money that the tariff payers paid the licensee, now that you accept time value of money, it will increase that amount that the rate payers will be required to pay. And that increased the tariff. And I would be very worried about the justification, because it will mean that we unduly add other costs, doubling the opportunity cost, because we would have already given them the opportunity cost. And now we're extracting again on consumer surplus and transfer that to the suppliers of the service. And are we then balancing the interest of the stakeholders? I'm very worried about that, Chair, and I'm not sure that there is sufficient economic justification for it, and also the timing of consideration of such factor in our methodology. Those are the two fundamental questions, Chair, that I wanted to bring forth. Thank you.
Thank you very much, members. I note your questions and comments, noting also that the matter has been discussed. Madam Yowan, just maybe to assist you in responding, the issue of the criteria has been raised by Mr. Sibanda, as well as the assessment of what would be then critical to include in terms of the criteria of on whether to decide in favor or against the inclusion in the RAP, for example. And then from my side, I think then it's going to be important for you when you're looking at that to also consider the fact that we are going piloting now, and that in line also with what Madam Maseti spoke about in terms of efficiency standards that are required by the regulator, to be cognizant of what is recognizable, what is achievable also, in terms of the scale efficiency and allocative efficiency. I would also like you to consider the issue of frequently asked questions, being able to include the explanation around the efficiency standards, talking to the issue of reasonableness, amongst other issues, and also that some of these matters will be dealt with on a case-by-case basis, as they said, looking at the individual circumstances. Hence, then be able to talk to the efficiency gain and economic analysis. The time value of money is already in, by the way, and now the proposal was to remove the time value of money. But as the issue was being discussed, it was looked at and said that there must be a primary reason other than just harmonizing, because the licensee already forfeits benefiting right at the time of the benefit accruing to them, or when it should accrue to them. And therefore the issue was to look at the time value of money from a point of view that you is not cast in stone in this phase of piloting. So in terms of the extraction of the consumer surplus, we needed to balance it, also taking into cognizance that with the volume efficiency factored in, there shouldn't be large clawbacks, because there would be, even the pipeline operating, it would be deemed to be operating at an optimal level in any event. But over to you then, Madam Ewan, and with the assistance of Madam Bobo and the team. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think you've mostly assisted us in terms of the response to the comments and questions from the members, and thank you, members. From my side, I would like to just note that we will take this into consideration and implement them when we're going through the piloting phase, and we will add the assessment criteria for the creation of the regulatory asset and or liabilities, as noted by Mr. Sibanda, into the criteria for the FAQs. And also in terms of the efficiency gains, the questions from Ms. Maseti, during the piloting phase, we will make sure that we highlight or create a note in the similar manner that we did for the methodology for storage and loading facilities, where we explain in detail for the licenses how the efficiency adjustment factor will be implemented, and how each component is going to affect the tariff, and highlight on a high level the benefits that we expect from implementing the efficiency adjustment factor, and which in this current moment, they basically the lowering the tariffs and potentially increasing competition where possible, even if it's for the entrance of pipelines that are for own use, as we currently have, and also those in the end benefit or contribute positively towards the socioeconomic concerns that we have. And also the time value of money, we are planning on considering it alongside the deferment of the allowable revenue, and we are still volume risk sharing mechanisms, and we aim to see how those are affected, and we will explore the impact both on the customers as well as on the licensee, and taking into account that we already have other operating of efficiency considerations that are for the license. And we will continue with the piloting phase as Mr. Mkhize has instructed, and Mr. Mkhize as members. Thank you. I think maybe if the HOD, Ms. Bogo, would like to add anything, I'll hand over to him.
I have nothing to add, Chairperson. Thank you.
Report, which I think will do, so that we don't get hit by a report at the end of the 12 months. And there are certain things that we could have guided you on in midterm report on the pilot phase. Members, I hope you've been sufficiently responded to, and we'll then proceed.
Put the chart there as Ms. Yokana was explaining. That the question that I asked about efficiency gains and justification is very different from the explanation about the efficiency justification that she was referring to. And I actually brought that during the introduction of the question, where we put on the efficiencies, the scale efficiencies, as well as allocate efficiencies. I even spoke about dynamic efficiencies that regulators usually take into consideration because they are equal when you have to take a decision, because the regulator must take a decision that is going to make sure that there's improvements in the well-being of in balancing the interest. But that answer does not get to that kind of a question that I've asked, which will then make it from just the elements and components of adjustments that you undertake as you analyze.
I'm just checking, Madam Asante, if that is not going to prevail when the individual application is being considered. Because when you look, for example, in terms of the allocative efficiency, and for me, then it tells me that that also features right at the beginning when there's an issuance of licenses, because we've got a situation here where there is competition just within the market. Then there is efficiency in terms of the allocative efficiency, how the infrastructure is distributed in the country. And then the issues of scale come in when one deals with from looking at that individual application. This is why I was saying that we're looking at each also a reasonable person do in that circumstance. I'm not so sure if this is understood, and from a point of view that is there to spell it very clearly what the efficiencies are all about, so that the licensees are not second guessing us in this regard.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I understand it. I won't take it further, but I want to actually emphasize the fact that because we are a regulator and we're regulating national monopolies that actually then resulting in the economies, we need to then distribute the cost across customers, which is what you call your allocative efficiencies. So it is one thing because you're doing that to enable the licensee to recover fixed cost and other common cost. So that is the standard. It's a notion of some burdening of other customers after you have said the recovery of fixed cost and common cost through allocative efficiencies and recognition of scale economies. Then what else can be used as an economic justification? Then that's what I was asking, whether we now exclude other efficiencies, which are your dynamic efficiencies, in case considered scale economies, how they flow, from a reasoning that the regulator should apply. Hence, I was saying maybe it can be done later so that we are quite clear what is it that we will recognize during the assessment, and perhaps then alignment as to what other efficiency standards that the regulator would consider. And that can be done outside of the meeting, Chair. If that is going to take long, it will be something to take into consideration. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Madam Asante. I have also challenged the team to say that in terms of our capacity building steering committee workshops, this is a matter that I think could be workshopped amongst the three divisions, looking at our methodologies also, and see how we can have efficiencies and how we can also improve with regard to our prudency guidelines. As you'd appreciate that the prudent guidelines have got just in excess of 4 years now. Let's work much harder. Madam Twa liaising with other team, as well as RAR playing but we this meeting just to make recommend to the energy regulator the approval of version 8 of the tariff management pipeline facilities attached here to as Annexure A. 2, the decision and reasons for decision on the tariffs for petroleum pipelines attached here to as Annexure B. And 3, the piloting period not exceeding 12 months in order to eliminate potential note and adopt the efficiency benchmarking report, which is attached.
Adopting the agenda. Thanks.
I decided not to raise the same issues I've raised before. So I was just not going to.
Secretariat, and then on the majority side, we then take this forward. Madam Yowan again. Or Madam Twa, just.
Chair, on the volume rules and excuse me, on the volume rules and the efficiency adjustment. So here we're requesting that extension is.
Good morning, everyone. The purpose of this submission is to request the PPS to recommend to the energy regulator a 6-month extension of the transition period for version 5 of the tariff methodology for petroleum storage and loading facility be limited to efficiency adjustment factor and volume rules. As Ms. Mutwa has indicated that on the 8th February, the PPS noted the report on transitioning of version 5 of the tariff methodology, and the report that has been noted at that PPS is attached here to as Annexure A. And the report discussed the manner in which the implementation of the efficiency adjustment factor through volume rules, and those challenges have been highlighted on paragraph 8 of this submission. So considering the challenges highlighted on paragraph 8 of the submission, PPS be extended. It is therefore proposed that instead of extending the full transitioning of the tariff methodology, the transitioning be only for 2 elements, being efficiency adjustment factor and volume rules on board, because it has been noted that during the transitioning period, most stakeholders continue to use the previous version of the methodology. It makes it difficult to engage on the details of the implementation of version 5 of the tariff methodology be limited to efficiency adjustment factor and volume rules. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Sibage. Any questions, comments, guidance? Noting that this recommendation for the extension was actually emanate, a product. Mrs. Banda. Mrs. Banda, then Madam said.
Chair, to support the recommendation. I think there's just an issue here that we pick for comparison purposes, and perhaps we just need to pay closer attention to that. And I'll give you an example. That's on page 16 of 20. Paragraph. You've got engine there whose capacity 10 is being compared to a peer, but that particular peer's capacity is actually 20 times more than that of engine, and I'm not sure if that's the correct. Although of course that particular peer is supposed to be having a higher capacity 10. But I'm just saying, also if you consider that the one facility is in KZN, the other one is in Western Cape, There are instances also in Limpopo, and the comparison, its facilities elsewhere. So our process, and maybe we just need to pay closer attention to that. Also, by who these peers are, where they are better, something that we just need to look at as we extend the transitioning. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Sibanda. Madam Massetti.
Thank you, Chairperson, for the opportunity. Two things for me, Chair. Mr. Sibanda covered me. I also just wanted to, just get clarification on the basis of the comparison, because yes, it's one thing to choose, but if we are not very clear on the measurements that we use or the criteria that we use, and see if it fits very well to the peers that we then. I would like to have a full appreciation of the risk involved in the extension, given the fact that we have identified these two factors as very important in improving the way that we evaluate the tariff applications and the change that or the impact that we want to see. Now, if we're extending the period, have we thought about the risk involved, plus also our level of readiness in terms of the resources from our side, collating the necessary data and be able to implement the method of adjusting for efficiency risk, not only just the level of readiness from our side, but also in terms of the industry, whether the industry will be ready come 6 months, and whether we will actually get.
Ntwani O may come in to assist.
Thank you, Chairperson. With regards to the question on our selection or identification of peers, the work that we've done in the previous financial or the current financial year, being 2022-23, was identifying peers in terms of the size of the facility as much as possible, the product stored, and how the facility receives product and how it dispatches product. So those were the criteria we need. Is the engagement with the licensees and them actually commenting on the peers that have been identified for their facilities, and identifying and communicating to the regulator other factors that we may not see because we are not in the operation side of the facilities. So we require that engagement with our licensees and stakeholders such that find this. Otherwise, we also did see the discrepancies or the huge variance report, and also on all the tariff applications that were considered in the 2022 to our readiness on our side as NERSA, and also the readiness of the industry. We are also engaging HR because we thought that we needed pure economists to also look into these factors of efficiency and facilitation of efficiency and implementation of the methodology that was approved in March last year. So, but then in the meantime, availability of economic data to implement these. I think that the data that we have identified that's important for us is actually volume data for all these, and that we be stringent and enforce that requirement that's outlined in the meter guidelines, as well as the regulations for us to submit volume reports and also volume profiles, which will also assist the adequacy of the peers that we have.
As to whether then will that 6 months be adequate? Personally, start to listen to what still needs to be done. Understanding, actually not teaching licenses.
to be able to collect all the required data and also engage licenses. I'd say that the preference from our end, being the technical term, would be that we extend it by 12 months rather, so that we are able to come back to the PPS biannually to report on this and the work done before we finalize.
Members, you have heard the responses. I've seen that Madam Masetti has made a thumbs up in terms of being happy with the response. And I think the response to scrutinized because they continuous improvement and expected from you. Thanks, Madam Mbogo. Then I'll go to the recommendation, which is for the PPS transitioning of efficiency, adjustment factor, and volume rules. By show of hands, members, if you supported that recommendation, where we just changed the 6 there to 12 months. Simane, thank you, Madam Masetti, thank you, Mr. Kumede, Mr. Sbanda, and advocates. I also support the recommendation. That then concludes item 6. Item 7 has been withdrawn. We'll then continue to Bergen Cape Terminal's financial land submission.
But briefly is that the guidelines for the provision of land rehabilitation were approved last year, and they require that licensees apply for approval of their selected or chosen facilities. So Bergen Capital has then applied for the facility that they've chosen. Ms. Mahopela, kindly take the members quickly through your introduction. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this submission is to request the PPS to approve the use of a bank guarantee as Bergen Cape's preferred financial instrument for the financial provision for the rehabilitation of land for its petroleum pipelines. As part of compliance after the approval of the guideline, NERSA sent non-compliance notices to all licensed. Bergen Cape is proposing a bank guarantee as its preferred form of a financial instrument. Bergen Cape secured the bank guarantee for the rehabilitation of land and reported that the amount stated in the bank guarantee is currently based on Bergen's affordability up until a review date of June 2027, where a higher value can be considered. Currently, Bergen Cape indicated that its business is currently heavily financed and the free cash flow is constrained up until June 2027. In Table 1 of the submission, Bergen Cape indicates a plan on how it will secure the use of a bank guarantee for Bergen Cape as a preferred financial instrument for the financial provision for the rehabilitation of land on which its licensed petroleum pipeline storage and loading facilities are built. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions, answers, guidance, members, by show of hands? Madam Masetti, and then Advocate Stole.
Chairperson, just two things for me. One is to find out whether a guarantee we now as a regulator feel comfortable that this is the mechanism that we should use and that it ticks all the boxes, one of them being the security of that fund that must be put aside and must never be accessed by anyone, including the creditors of the licensee, even in understanding whether this form of keeping the fund for decommissioning or rehabilitation, is it safe? I would like to understand then the value of the fund, whether there is any mention of it being adjusted by inflation over the period or with whatever amount over the period, just to make sure that the value will still be kept at a sort of an adequacy level, for future use paper and the growth of that fund, and that there hasn't been any risk to the fund over the years. I just want to understand those.
Thank you, Madam Massetti. Advocate Stole.
As Massetti with the last question. My question was going to be how often will the security provided to the licensee be reviewed, and what has been given, will it be adequate for what period, Chairperson? I think the last question, Ms. Massetti put it very well. I just wanted to find out from the team as to when or how often the review of the security will be done.
Madam Bogan, your team.
Thank you, Chairperson. With regards to the assets, I think we also did that work during the processing of the guidelines for financial provisioning for land rehabilitation, which was done last year. No, not last year. So when that was done, we then recommended about 3 financial instruments, being the trust, the bank guarantee, and also the insurance in exceptional circumstances. We found to optimally also meet the criteria that was set for assessment of financial instruments. For instance, with regards to sufficiency of the funds, we indicated that for a bank guarantee would then be required as the energy regulator to verify, and the decommissioning activities that would be required for the regulated facility, and also assess the sufficiency of Ms. Massetti's question on is this going to be above inflation? So we, on annual basis, check sufficiency, and we already with this by Bergen to increase the fund closer to the end of the useful life for its regulated facilities. Thank you, Chairperson. I think that covers all 3 questions.
Members, I hope the responses suffice.
Chairperson is on the security, because I was talking about the ease of access to that fund if it's a bank guarantee. Are we certain that in terms of those funds being kept secured so that nobody's going to utilize them as we make provisions? Are we certain that there is that security? I think that's what I was trying to find out. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Bogo. If we can just talk then, because we talk of the guidelines with regard to the financial. Can you talk to that, the issue of ring fencing? In other words, this is matter that talks to ring fencing.
So, Chairperson, the bank guarantee that is issued by the bank is specifically for the rehabilitation of land, including decommissioning activities. So it cannot be used for. Thanks.
Thank you. I hope then if you are covered, the recommendation which is on page 8 of 11, it is recommended that the PPS approves the use of a bank and Cape terminals preferred financial instrument for financial provision for the rehabilitation of land on which its licensed petroleum pipeline storage and loading facilities are built. By show of hands, members, if you support this recommendation. Thank you, Mr. Kumete, Mr. Sbanda, Advocate Stole, Madam Simani. I also do support. So you've got your decision there, Madam Toa and the team. Which item deals with the decision and reasons for decision on the Back and Cape Terminal multi-year tariff application for its petroleum pipeline storage and loading facilities located at the Port of Cape Town, 23 to 31 December 2025. This is for approval. Over to you, Madam Toa.
I quickly request Mr. Ndlovu to take us through the multi-year tariff for the Back and Cape Town Terminal.
Thank you, Ms. Mtoa. Good morning, members and colleagues. This is their petroleum storage, loading and pipeline facilities at the Port of Cape Town for the I'll take the submission as read and maybe highlights that with regards to the storage and the loading facility, Bergen determined allowable revenues basing it on the NELSA methodology. And then when calculating the tariff, they used the levelized cost method, or also called the discounted cash flow method, by projecting all allowable revenues over the life of the facility and all the volumes over the life of the facility to determine a net present value of AR divided by a net present value of volumes. This then made a 31.4 cents per liter for the storage and 1.75 cents per liter for the loading. This was the calculation done by Bergen. And then in our analysis, we calculated a tariff of 30.99 cents per liter and a tariff of 1.71 cents per liter for the storage and loading respectively. So Chair, we adopted their levelized cost method as a tariff design. And then Chair, with regards to the pipelines, then calculated a standardized AR over volumes with no levelized mechanism in place, and Bergen to liter for the 2023 financial year, 1.56 cents per liter for the 2024 financial year, and 1.59 cents per liter for the 2025 financial year. We as NELSA calculated tariff of 1.51 cents per liter, 1.62 cents per liter, and 1.65 cents per liter for the 2023 financial year. The difference in the pipelines tariffs is mainly due to the economic data used by Bergen for the risk-free and the market economic data. And the difference in the storage and loading tariffs are mainly due to the calculation where they calculated a return on a nominal WACC, whereas we used real WACC to calculate our net working capital return in line with the methodologies provided on page 18 and 19 of the submission and on page 5 of 39 of the decision. Thank you, Chair.
Any comments, questions, or guidance, members? Mr. Sibanda, sir?
Questions relating to the global. So with respect to the pipeline, there's a by the jump in volumes as a result of a recovery from the COVID. However, my reading is that we are accepting the full global as applied for. However, when we dealt with the Transnet application, we had to understand why aren't we doing this similar to what happened to the Transnet pipeline. So maybe if I can get a clarification there. And I do note that the suggestion is to then spread this over a longer period of time. But as a matter of principle, with the question of risk sharing, which we applied in the other application. And then secondly, when it comes to the storage, so we did a comparison again with Bergen's peers, and we came to a determination that not being utilized efficiently when compared to the peers. But we are still going ahead and allowing the full global again for on the one hand, we're saying you're supposed to be operating at a particular level, and you're not, and the licensee comes back and says, look, I was not able to provide all the volumes, and therefore there's this clawback that I'm claiming, and we are to allow that. So I'm just a bit unsure approach, Chair. Of course, I mean, we do indicate that going forward again, we'll look into these and make any further adjustments when we get information on the actual volumes in future and all of that. But we've already done an assessment that says there's some inefficiency.
Thank you very much, Mr. Subanda. I'm glad that you have zoomed into that, especially when it comes to the issue of being consistent. Madam Bogo and Ndlovu and Madam Tu.
Thank you, Chairperson. So with regards to the volume clawback, what we did with Transnet is tantamount to not such volume clawback or the clawback emanating from them, not the projected volumes, which we normally refer to as volume clawback. So the decision until such time a decision on how we're going to deal with these volume share or volume risk issues. There is a submission in this agenda which deals with the discussion document on volume risk mechanism. So when that decision is taken, we said to Transnet, assess whether or not the energy tariff only increases by 8%. As opposed to Transnet, well, this particular licensee is not claiming all of this volume clawback in 1 year, but spreading it. So we said that depending on what the decision on the volume risk mechanism is, we'll then be able to still implement what the decision would be, because this one is spread over the life of the in this one, applications for approval of tariffs. So if we were to implement immediately the same manner we did with Transnet, it would lead to disapproval of the tariffs that are applied for, whilst this volume risk mechanism is not incorporated or already incorporated in them. It wouldn't be fair on the licensee for us to disapprove a tariff on such grounds, which the licensee would not have known about before lodging an application. And implement the efficiency. Mr. Sibanda indicated that we have identified inefficiencies, but they were still allowing the volume clawback. So how we do it, Mr. Sibanda, is we do a comparison of where a particular licensee sits compared to its peers, and then we set a volume target for the licensee. So here we have set a volume target for Berg and Cape, and then should Berg and Cape not meet that volume target, they will not in the next 1-2 years be for a volume clawback, because they would have failed to meet the set volume target. Thanks, Chairperson.
Sibanda?
The last issue. Yes, of course, going forward, I do take note that there will be volume targets, and if the licensees are unable to reach that, then they won't be able to claim the clawback. But in this instance, we are giving them a clawback for the previous period, which you are saying that has been and so yeah, that's where my question was really. But going forward, I think it's straightforward. But I do accept the explanation, and also perhaps the volume risk sharing, also because it's the clawback is spread over a longer period of visit. Once the issue around the rules and all of that is in place, so I'm fine with that, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you, there, Mr. Sibanda. I will then go to the recommendation, which is that the Petroleum Pipeline Subcommittee approves the tariffs of 31.40 cents per litre, 32.78 cents per litre, and 34.54 by Bergen Cape Terminal for its petroleum storage facility for the period 3 March 2023 to 31st December 2025. 2. Approves the tariffs of 1.83 cents per litre and 1.91 cents petroleum loading facility for the period 3 March 2023 to 31 December 2025. Thirdly, set the tariff of 1.51 cents per litre, 1.62 cents per litre, and 1.65 cents per litre for Bergen's Petram Pipelines facility for the period 3 to 31 December 2025. And lastly, approve the decision and reasons for decision document attached here to as Annexure A. By show of hands, members, if you support this recommendation. Thank you, Madam Simane. Thank you, Mr. Sibanda. Thank you, Mr. Kumede. Advocates then concludes item 9. We then go to item 10, which deals with the matter that was just alluded to in item 9, being the discussion document on the volume risk sharing mechanism between Petram Pipeline Storage operators. Over to you, Madam Chua and your team.
Thank you, Chair. As indicated, indeed, thanks, Chair. As indicated, Ms. Mogo is some document on volume risk sharing. I'll request Mr. Gaba to quickly highlight what kind of engagement we're seeking to have with the public on this document. Thank you, Mr. Gaba.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Good morning to members as well as colleagues. Just to be brief, we do note that this project came about as part of the decision of the energy regulator on the Transnet tariff application for the 21-22 financial period, where, in the 22-23 financial year determination by the energy regulator, where the energy regulator found it reasonable to only implement 50% of the revenue clock that was applied for by Transnet. The final decision on the remaining 50% was would then be informed by research facts and evidence provided by stakeholders, including Transnet as well. We also conducted this research into the various volume risk mechanisms that may be applied to mitigate the adverse effects of licensees not being able to achieve their targeted volumes due to black swan events such as your COVID-19 that was experienced. And also, stakeholders have also was not made available due to line taps, which also contributed, which also volumes as well. So this enabled us to go into a research to research on the concept of particularly risk sharing mechanism, which was ensure the risk, the consequences of volume loss by licensee. This, members, would also contribute towards the final decision on Transnet in order to ensure that the decisions of the energy regulator would then be informed by research, facts and evidence as well. Maybe I should skip going into, in the interest of time, going into definitions of risk, find some research onto the various ways that risk, volume risk actually, mechanisms, the various types of volume risk mechanisms used, firstly into the public risk sharing mechanisms, and those looked closely into the fiscal stabilization as government incentives and policy regulatory development, which are some of the risk sharing mechanisms used by public risk The public also identified private risk-sharing mechanisms as well in the form of insurance, which is similar to insurance that is taken out by licensees against theft, etc. Also, mechanisms such as uses in capital markets, as well as or investments in capital.
We take the submission as having been read. Thanks.
Okay, do you want to add anything just to complete?
Apologies, Chairperson. I'm really struggling with my item here. I just wanted to maybe just point members to where the recommendations are, but my laptop is not moving at all. Apologies for that.
Apologies, members.
Okay.
Connection. Okay.
Can you just summarize? Please summarize, because we're told that we just need to quickly move to the. In fact, Madam, for public between operators and the customers, especially in the event of the those fun events, how to deal with that. That is the understanding broadly. Any questions, comments, guidance that you would give from your side? Mr. Sibanda, sir?
For volume risk sharing. However, I wasn't quite sure in terms of the legal authority, apart from Regulation 4.1, the legal authority for coming up with the mechanism. And then secondly, I should licensees to choose which mechanism to implement, what instrument to use, or whether we should have a closed list from which licensees could identify 3 or 4 mechanisms, and then say licensees could choose from this. So I'm saying perhaps that's an issue that we can probe or put out to stakeholders to comment on. That is whether it should be a guideline, and then we leave it to licensees.
Creative as such, but provide.
Thank you for those recommendations. We do intend to also be approaching LAS and also to beef up our legal mandate as instructed by you, sir. Secondly, in terms of the guidelines, it is our intention to, in incidents that we would be considered, that incidents that would be considered as black swan events, not particularly close to that only. Also, in terms of our questioning, in terms of the discussion document itself, the questions that we pose to stakeholders is also to determine what other types of volume risk sharing mechanisms that they would find appropriate that were not foreseen to unforeseen circumstances as well. I hope that covers it.
I think it's going to be important to enhance the document along the lines of what Mr. Sibanda said, to test the public with regards to them, whether the suite of alternatives to consider. And I would say that please look at the in advisory services unit to look at strengthening the legal mandate in terms of the law, but also vis-a-vis what goes into the mechanism as such. So excuse me, if ensuring that there is regulatory certainty, because when something is sitting in the regulations or sitting in the, it is in the legal sphere, and therefore engage upon EM liaising just early whilst also in electricity they're busy with the looking at the methodology from their side. It would greatly assist in my view. I hope.
Yes, Chair. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Members, without any delay, I would like to take you to the recommendation, which is on pay new entrance. Over to you, Madam Twainoti.
Then part 2. Sorry, Mo.
Proceed, Madam Dlamini.
Part 1. However, I would like the members to note the following correction on page 2, paragraph 7. Analysis of the WASA terminals application is on paragraph 12 to 16. During this reporting period, 14 applications were lodged, 6 of which were considered, together with 13 applications from the previous. Further details are on Table 2, which starts on page 8 of 43. Lastly, engagements held with potential new entrants are listed on Table 4, which is on page 13 of 43. I'll hand over to Mr. Balo to present the rest of the report. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Over to Madam Sibalo.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be briefing the members on part 2 of the report. I'd like to take the members through table 1 in the report, the members for this particular report. For part and then I'd like to refer the members to paragraph 3, where we have the conclusions or findings of the report. We have the NAs at 182, the loading facilities at 25, and the pipelines at 18. The Western Cape, KZN remain the provinces with the highest number of licensed facilities. On ages own about 77% of the licensed petroleum infrastructure, and majority of the primary storage facilities. We received comments from Mr. Sibanda on the report. On page 4, paragraph 12, there are discrepancies consistent in our reporting. We should have been consistent with how we reported it on page 15, paragraph 21. There were discrepancies, but I'd like to highlight that particular paragraph discusses the findings of the previous report, which is consistent with the title of that particular section. We have different numbers in item 11 and item 13. In item 11, we focused on the operational licenses issued by the energy regulator and not necessarily operational facilities. Thank you, Chair. I wanted to clarify those discrepancies noted by Mr. Sibanda. Therefore, I'd like the
Thank you very much, Madam Sibalo. It has helped a lot in terms of running the meeting efficiently.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to note the report and also for the engagements with potential new entrants. And I'm assuming that there was a meeting here with a stakeholder, and that we knew the purpose of the other issues. I'm just concerned, Chair, that because external stakeholders just know NERSA, so they don't know PPR or ELR or GA. For me, perhaps, to better manage this, it's either we invite colleagues from the other divisions. Can you come and assist, or rather, can you join the meeting virtually and assist on this particular matter, rather than to send away a stakeholder and then say, go and contact our colleagues in licensing, or sorry, in electricity or in gas. It's just that issue for me that I thought perhaps we could handle it better. Also to just break down these silos and promote teamwork across divisions, Chair. But the other issue that I also wanted to raise is with respect to paragraph 26. F, that talks about are people going to have full access to the portal and so forth, instead of going to happen by and by, but we should have specific timelines in terms of the training. Otherwise, I'm happy with the report, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sibanda. If you may just please then respond. The first one is actually more of guidance and just to be able to assist in breaking of silos. You might have done it in a particular manner, in the manner required, but maybe not captured it as such. Please do capture it to convey that we work together as NERSA. We don't want a person, an external stakeholder being sent from pillar to post. We rather be the ones that bring the colleague that is most knowledgeable or a request from a stakeholder. It helps a lot in terms of stakeholder management as well as pure service delivery to our people. And then on the GIS, if you can just talk, if you don't have the figures, the dates, exact dates, you'll have then to reflect it in the next report. But we can have it as a matter rising also. But just come in there.
Chair, it's
Mr. Uti, okay? Continue, Mr. Uti.
Duly noted the guidance and comments on the first matter. Chair, the project scope where we fell behind the scope, the actual facility is outside petroleum's control. So I think as an action item, we will then have to get our information colleagues in IT. I must say we're getting very good cooperation from the resource which resides in the I didn't have time, and she's unfortunately this is then a cross-cutting matter. Maybe it should be going to REC, but I'll be guided by you. We'll make this action item, sir.
Noted. Anyone from IT in this meeting? Just to quickly respond on this. Sir Daniel Totem is in.
Yes. What needs to be done with IT, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Facilities as well as the new entrance. By show of hands, members, if you support this recommendation. The recommendation. So the PPS has then duly noted the report with the enhancement to be made in the forthcoming ones. We'll then proceed then to item 12, which is the infrastructure utilization and third-party access to petroleum storage facilities. Dr. Kolo and Madam Mabije.
Yes, thank you so much. Good morning, members, management, colleagues, and stakeholders on this one. But when she's done, I will need about the
storage facilities. The report with regards to the total level of third-party access for this reporting period, it is at approximately 20.3%, with emerging participants or new entrants utilizing 5.2% of the 20.3%. A total of 105 petroleum storage facilities were identified to have uncommitted capacity. A list of these facilities is provided the funding to assist emerging third parties. The details are provided in paragraph 62 to 66 of Annexure A. It is therefore recommended, Chairperson, on page 6 of 28, that the PPS notes that the PPS notes the report attached here to as Annexure A, think that some third parties are not ready to actively participate due to funding limitations. And in that respect, that the PPS also notes that there is positive feedback from one of
on page 2 of 28. For instance, currently we are saying there are about 105 facilities that can accommodate IDAs. Just to clarify that point, why we are sitting at that number, because recently we have received new information from one of the applicants. The applicant appears on paragraph 6.10.4. That's page 4 of 28. The name of that requester for access is companies that he contacted were so willing to going forward and acquiring storage. The other point that he mentioned, as we are in a meeting, I've also received an email from what I also call a fourth party that is looking on behalf of others. So, but the issue of funding is outside our jurisdiction, but we are trying our best. Hence, we've also mentioned that there is a financial institution there. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Doc. Thanks, Madam Mabiche. And Advocate Stole, over to you, Mr. Sibanda.
Thanks, Chair. Maybe just to pick up on the issue raised by Dr. Kolo, which is actually summarized in paragraph 6.6 and also paragraph 51. So there is or limitations or conviction, but it would assist perhaps just to list to point that out or to indicate what measures then are being to resolve that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sibanda. Advocate Stole.
And thanks to the presenters. Chair, mine is just a point of clarity to the infrastructure, but cannot afford it, as to who are those licensees need for the products that they may want to have in some of those that have the infrastructure. Do we assist as NESA, or is it our role to be assisting those new entrants as agreements? Thanks, Chairperson.
Thank you. Dr. Kolo, over to you.
In terms of what we are doing, for instance, we've got the licensee does not respond. Sitola's question. We've got Annexure B that has been attached. Analysis. And then we develop a list in terms of, and then that is used by whoever that is interested in terms of access, because we put it per product and then we sort of start monitoring them and intervening where there is a need to do so. Thank you, Chair and members.
Thanks, Doctor. I think it's just also need to be very right from the beginning of requesting for access challenges, access. I also think that linking with the stakeholder management and engagement side of things is going to be important, that we also were stakeholders in this regard, in the same vein that and how to find their way into the industry. I think it's important that we have that kind of which you should then include it as part of the program for 2023-24. Okay, Advocate Stole.
For us as a regulator, they do not provide complete information that is required to assist them in terms of the access that they require. So I just thought that we should also try and see how we address those issues that are raised under paragraph 59, para 59.1 to 4. But there's a numbering error there that should.
Thank you. I think they took 609 Gafana. They should just correct that numbering there. Doctor, a request or making such a request, it should be part and parcel of what is communicated. It's important. Go to page, I think it's page 6 of 28, which deals with the recommendation, which is for the PPS to note the mechanism that NERSA has put in place to ensure that access, which is normally beyond this jurisdiction. This was motivated by the fact that in the previous submission of financial year, it was indicated that 4 third parties were granted access but could not import volumes due to. Note the report attached as Annex A facilities identified to have uncommitted capacity attached as Annex B, and note the positive feedback from one of the financial institutions on assisting third parties with funding. By show of hands, members, if you support this recommendation.
Chairperson, except the one for funding, I cannot support that one. I'm dissenting on that one because I think there will be a big challenge as an independent regulator that must promote competition, and also the funds that we utilize received from the levies. And I'm not sure if utilized for trying to give unfair advantage on them to enter the market. I'm very worried about that, Chair. So on that
indicated that they wanted to understand. There were problems, and then the potential funding institutions were advised of the challenge, and then they came to the fore with regard to getting the funding now to effect. It's not helping us in any way as a regulator, but it's us to be able to point them to who are the people that could help them. I hope you understand the issue of funding.
And basis, I would not support. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay. Advocate Stole?
Chair, I was just going at pointing of the fact that we are to note will assist in the concern raised by Ms. Massetti.
Does that noting assist, Madam Massetti?
That Chairperson is fine. I can note without delaying the meeting. I can note that, Chairperson, but I would like us to mince our interference of parties that must act fairly in the marketplace in terms of looking at opportunities. And all we do is just to facilitate without doing certain things that are beyond our jurisdiction. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We then move such ahead now to the biannual report on the monitoring and enforcement of compliance with operation license conditions. And Mr. Untit.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning to members and colleagues. The purpose of the report is to request the report covers standard reporting mechanism and third-party access, HDSA participation, which is Regulation 8, and site visit conducted. On the average storage facility utilization, in terms of monthly storage facility utilization from the above bulk storage facilities, the report on the monthly utilization, the average is for the reporting period is 93%, and for the below bulk facility is 76%. On the allocation mechanism, 83% of all the petroleum storage licensees have launched the allocation mechanism with the energy regulator, which is 50 out of 60 licensees, which is Regulation 8. The level of compliance in terms of reporting on regulation is 87% for the reporting period. On the site visit conducted, 39 planned 45 site visits were conducted. Only 6 planned site visits is outstanding, and the outstanding planned site visit will be completed before end of March this year. On the site visit, the written findings for all site inspection is attached as Annexure A1 of the attachment 1. The other thing is for the comments that we have received from Mr. Sibanda on the number of storage facilities and loading facilities, which is paragraph 5. Those numbers, 186 is correct, which is the number of storage facilities, and 24 loading. Thank you, Chair. The recommendation is, it is recommended that the PPS note the biannual report attached as Annexure 1. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mapoli. Any questions, comments, guidance members? With none of those members by show of hands. Oh, here's Mr. Sibanda.
Chair, just a quick one. So there's an issue around the escalation of non-compliance, 17, where we cite the unavailability of vacancy on the paragraph. Those indicate what those are, and so that we were in a position to see whether they still persist or not. I know it's an internal issue for us, but yeah, I guess if it's holding back the escalation of non-compliance, then we need to deal with it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I think that second sentence is not consistent with the first one, because
yeah, apologies, Chair. I was trying to respond to the tribunal matter in the chat because I missed your question, and if you can just guide me there.
It's to delete the second sentence because it doesn't really align with what you state in the first one. And in as far as I understand, the tribunal rules are in place. If they aren't, you should be able to speak specifically to what is it that is lacking in this regard.
I'm not sure if Mr. Murati is in the meeting, but the rules was developed centrally. They were a petroleum sector. I believe there was some, or at least you can help us there. I know it was published, but the implementation of it has been a problem. The previous time we attempted it.
Let's not hold the meeting, but the simple thing is that the escalation of recurring non-compliance was also delayed by the unavailability of tribunal rules. My understanding is that there was not an issue.
Agreed, sir. Maybe the wording.
So that is why I'm saying, just
we will do, sir.
And then you then look at the issue of the tribunal rules and the implementation thereof, the readiness. Thank you. With that, members, which is for the PPS to note the biannual report attached here to as Annex 1 on the level of compliance by licenses with the conditions of their operation licenses issued for the financial year 2022-2023 as at 31st January 2023. By show of hands, members, if you support the recommendation. Thank you, Mr. Sbanda. Thank you, Mr. Kumete. Support the recommendation. This then concludes item 13. We're moving to conditions. Mr. Lukele and
plan for this financial year. The report seeks to provide updates. Last year, there's only one change to licensed project, and this is indicated in paragraph 8 of the report on page 12. It is with respect to the licensing of a new project by BTT to construct storage tanks and loading facilities in Richards Bay. And then currently, Chair, there are 14 projects that are deemed to be still active. And this consists of 7 projects that are yet to commence, 5 completed, but the next phase of construction is yet to commence. 1 project has commenced with construction, but construction was subsequently stopped. It's the Avidia pipeline construction project in Saldanha Bay. And the last one, Chair, it's the Transnet project, with some large parts of the project completed over the years. The remaining scope of the project is the TM1 tanks. And with respect to the application, Chair, NESA received an application from SFF in January 2023 for the construction of an LPG pipeline in Saldanha Bay. And this application is being taken through the process, and this is the application or new application for construction license that has been received since the last report. Chairperson, the last part I will just wish to talk to is the non-compliance, and this is covered in section 5 of the report. Chair, there were 4 licenses with respect to 5 projects that were deemed non-compliant, and non-compliance is with respect to failure to meet the construction timelines, as well as failure to submit progress reports. But however, Chair, with respect to the progress reports, subsequent to the sign-off of the submission, the licensees concerned submitted the progress report. So it's no longer a non-compliance issue. And with respect to the construction timelines, Chair, the licensee concerned were reminded to comply. However, Chair, I think it is important just to indicate that over the years, project delays have been the main reason for non-compliance by licensee. And as indicated on paragraph 11 of the report, Chair, NERSA will really look at how this can be better managed. And already, Chair, NERSA has started with some measures to better manage the project delays, in which it has some discussions with one of the authorities, and the details on this are on paragraph 13 on page 18 of the report. With that, Chair, the recommendation is for the PPS to note the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lukele. Any questions, comments, guidance members? I note that there are none, and that then takes us to recommendation, which is on page 4 of 35, which is it's recommended that the PPS notes the second biannual report on the monitoring and enforcement of compliance with construction license conditions attached here to as Annexure 1 on the progress made in the project's license by NERSA and the level of compliance by the licensees. By show of hands, members, if you support the recommendation. Massetti, I also support the recommendation. This then takes us to the end of items that are to be dealt with in the open meeting. I would like to thank everyone that has been following us as NERSA, as a Petron Pipeline Subcommittee through the various live streaming channels. This then concludes the matters of the day that are to be discussed in the open meeting. We'll then go to the closed meeting dealing with governance issues. I would just like to check with you, Mr. Mateja, if we have switched off the live streaming.
The Chairperson, live streaming is off. And before you continue, Chairperson, there are people who log in as guests. I don't know the name. Just want the colleague to help me. I've got the Innocence, Mwato, and I've got the Bongani and other people. I don't know them, Chairperson. If a colleague can help me.
There are new employees and interns. There's a new employee and interns. So, but we did not introduce them in the beginning, noting that there is notices and personnel where we will be introducing them.